What is up, Vortex Nation? Got an absolutely awesome opportunity for you. This is your chance to win a Razor AMG UH-1 Gen 2 holographic weapon sight in its new colorway, tan. If you're watching on YouTube, I've got one in front of me right now. But that's not all. It's not even close to all, because you're going to get a matching Aero Precision AR-15 along with a Slingster carbine sling from our good friends over at Faro Concepts. Entering is easy. Simply sign up for the Vortex Nation newsletter at join.vtxnation.com. If you can't remember that, no problem, because we've posted that link in the show notes below. Without further ado, let's start the show. But before we do, let me just say this. Good luck.
Hunting is especially out west with a pack on, it's just the bottom line, you burn a lot of calories. So it's going to take X amount of calories to keep you alive. So if you sat in that podcast chair for 24 hours, there's a good chance you're going to need at least 1,500 calories to stay alive. That's just breathing, being alive. That's not even moving or any physicality. So
what is up, everybody? Mark on the mic here, and yes, it's time to dig in to another podcast. I have my very good friend, Mr. Dan Staton, an absolute physical specimen, a backcountry elk killer extraordinaire. Dan, you got the Elk Shape podcast, Elk Shape website, all the Elk Shape things. You're in Elk Shape, and today we're going to talk about something that I guess relates to how your body will perform in the field. And we're talking about backcountry nutrition and how you're going to fuel your body.
Another banger topic. We did hydration on your 10-minute one a couple weeks ago. That probably got 6 downloads. And now we're going to go into the sexiest topic, nutrition. We're not going to talk about elk tactics or elk calling.
Nobody cares about those things.
True. Okay. Well, let's get into it then.
I tell you what, though, like for me, and I don't do a ton of backcountry hunting. A lot of what I've learned through doing some backcountry hunting in regards to food, I roll into like my day trips. So oftentimes what I carry on a day trip is just what I would carry like for a single day or a food on a backpack hunt. But that was something that it did take me a little bit to dial in, at least what I consider at least my personal program as it stands right now. Man, I had to carry a lot of things, or I didn't have to, but I did carry things in the field that made their way back home with me, stuff I didn't like, stuff that I ended up not eating, so it was just extra weight that I carried around for the whole trip, dreading in the event that I did end up having to need it or need to eat it. So there's something to it. I feel like there's some strategy to it, some best practices, some things that you want to be thinking about, some stuff that we're going to talk about today, calories per ounce, maybe some breakdowns of the types of, the breakdowns of, proteins versus fats versus carbs, things like that. Yeah, dude, I'm pumped. I don't know. I'm excited about this topic. I brought in front of me today, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see kind of what I consider a day's worth of food.
I'm very interested to get into your day's worth of food. And I say that with a smile because you and I have talked about this offline. Like, I'm always looking for what's in your lunch pail, and see if there's anything that that's a good idea, want to trade. And I'm a solo elk hunter, so if I get to trade, it's with a camera guy, and he doesn't pack the most coolest food ever. He's pretty plain Jane. So I'm looking for new ideas year over year. Because I can remember even last year, like there's this plastic bag back at Spike Camp or Base Camp that's like got all the food from the day before. And I noticed after a few days, it looks the same and it's in multiples. And I'm like, why did I pack that? I never look forward to eating it. Never sounds good. It's not palatable. I'm not feeling it. So if I could just bring the right foods this year and look forward to eating and feel good after I eat it, that's what I'm here for.
Yeah, and everybody's going to have their strategy. I know guys that they bring a lot of natural whole foods into the field. I hit the easy button, and pretty much everything on the table here and that I'm going to have with me comes with a wrapper. It's store-bought. I sometimes have a few exceptions there. Some I have on the table as honorable mentions here, not in my this is the pile of food that I measured. I've got some measurements on this one, Dan. But let's talk about, like, a person's on a backcountry hunt per day. And a lot of the stuff is that we talk about, it will and does depend on the individual and their needs and how their body works. Is that a safe assumption, Dan?
Yeah, I'm on board.
But like calorie targets, day of food, like what are you looking at, Dan, on say a physical day of hunting?
Yeah, so I guess to context is everything, right? Like if you're doing a backcountry tree stand hunt for 7 days, and you're only walking a mile to the stand and then heading back to camp or even spike camp, it's not that active of a hunt. But I don't know about you, but when I go elk hiking, which is what I call it now, I don't even call it elk hunting because I think 90% of it is just hiking around.
Yeah, I've done my fair share of bow hiking.
Yeah, bow hiking, elk hiking, that's what you're doing. And if you have a pack on, even if you're like pretty weight conscientious and your pack's still going to be 30 pounds, like it's tough to get under a 30 pounds if you got kill kits, food, a couple of sets of rain gear or whatever, a communication device, whatever. It's going to be tough to get under 30. Some people can do it. I cannot. So it's safe to say 30 plus pounds on your back, gaining elevation, hiking, that burns calories at a rate that people have studied and can kind of ballpark that. This is just the ballpark number, but let's just say pretty vigorous hiking for an hour straight, 500 calories an hour, period. Like that's a ton of calories. The other thing is that it's going to take X amount of calories to keep you alive. So if you sat in that podcast chair for 24 hours, there's a good chance you're going to need at least 1,500 calories to stay alive. That's just breathing, being alive. That's not even moving or any physicality. So once you start to wrap your mind around, okay, I have a basal metabolic rate that keeps me alive plus activity, pretty strenuous activity. Yeah, like you need to figure out your exertion level, and it's going to be safe to start with your body weight, for example. And I'm not asking you to share your body weight, but I'll share mine. I walk around 160. I'm 40, almost 3. And by the time hunting season comes to a close, I will weigh in the 140s, which I have no business weighing that little, but I do. And I don't have a lot of extra lbs to lose. It's just quite impossible, to be honest, to take in enough energy to offset the energy output. So for me, I'm trying to mitigate weight loss. I'm not on a weight loss.
Are you losing, is that muscle? Are you losing muscle on that, Dan, as you're going through the season?
Yeah, I probably come in at 10% body fat, and I probably come home at like a gross number that's unhealthy, and I'm losing muscle as well. So I'm as lean as I could be year round coming in at the end of September, striations, and it's not the look I'm going for. It looks good, but I don't feel my best. And so yeah, it's like hunting is especially out west with a pack on, it's just the bottom line, you burn a lot of calories. So for me, I have done some calculations in the past to where I've figured out 3,000 calories is kind of what I need to hit when elk hunting. It's still not enough to sustain. That number probably is a lot higher, but once I start to like figure out my cadence of eating when I'm hunting, and turns out you're not sitting around eating snacks all day. Now there are days where you eat more than others, but there's some days where maybe the elk hunting's so good you don't ever get a chance to eat, and then you blink and it's dark and you're like, oh wow, I've skipped breakfast, never skip popping coffee. Had a quick snack at lunchtime and I haven't ate since, and I have a whole bag full of daily food I need to like eat plus my freeze dried. Ain't happening. So yeah, man, like 3,000 calories for a guy who weighs 160, who is hiking vigorously throughout the day in intervals, So And how I did those numbers, I can't even remember. I'll try to think of it here in a second, but the calculations for someone like you, Mark, you don't weigh 160, but you can't weigh that much more. You're going to need at least that, if not a couple hundred more calories. So once you figure out your number based on, there's just calculators online you can look up and just figure out, okay, what's an estimation of my basal, meaning no hunting, just physically, what do you need a day? Everyone's going to be somewhere between 16 to 2,500 calories. If there's, trying to think, like Eric Barber over there on your media team, what is he, 6'2"?
Boy, he's got to be, I think. Yeah.
And he's not like a big, thick dude, but like he's just going to burn way more calories than you and I. Just his basal is going to be higher. He's got a high metabolism. He's got to eat more than both of us. And so everyone's basal is based on kind of like your height, your weight, your lean mass, your fat mass, things like that. And there's some good calculators online, and I'll send you a few afterwards to put in the show notes, but get a baseline number. And then I think the biggest takeaway for this pod is, number one, once you figure out your caloric need and you go and buy the food, please take the time. I think you probably do this, but I do 1 gallon Ziploc bag, and I get all my food, Exhibit A. And I get in there and I do the math, and I try to make sure each bag is between 3,000 and 3,200 calories a day. And that's including dinner, which is a freeze-dried meal. And then I make 30 of those for every day of September. And I'm gone every day of September. And you can see how, and we'll get to this later, how 30 days cannot be the same food, or you're going to hate your life. You know what I mean? Even 10 days would be brutal. So variety is the spice of life. And so that's kind of like, work your way backwards would be the first place to start this conversation off, is get your number. It's a guesstimate. Most of you are bigger than me, so it's going to be more than 3,000 calories. And then do the math and figure out, okay, how am I going to hit that? And then you can start to take a peek into how many of these calories should come from protein, how many of these calories should come from carbohydrates and fat. And you can kind of start figuring that out. And I don't know when this pod's dropping, but man, a month out for hunting season is a great time to kind of maybe test some of this food out and see what jives with your system. Nothing could be worse than being on the mountain and either not wanting to eat, or what you just ate is giving you GI tract problems, and you're looking for baby wipes every hour on the hour. That just sounds like a disaster.
Well, and if you don't want to eat it, sometimes you aren't going to eat it, even when you should be eating it. And then one thing that I find, and I've tried some of these things, looks good, and they're sort of like, that'd be great, and it's got maybe a high caloric, count, calories per ounce. You're like, this is gonna be great, and then you get up there and it's like eating chalk or something like that, and then you're guzzling half your bottle of water, which can be an extremely precious commodity, just to choke something down. So again, like you said, doing that stuff at home and thinking about that you might have limited water or something like that, I think is a really good idea. And like you said, those calculators are great. A lot of what I kind of decided of things that I like and what I'm going to bring, a little bit of trial and error there. You bring a big sack of food and you realize, well, maybe I came back with, on average, like this much left over. Well, maybe that's excess weight that I don't need to carry. On the flip side, one thing I like to do is plan like a little bit of extra, like overbuild my daily food kit a little bit every day. And then that way, if you do end up having to spend an extra night, you kind of do have a couple of those extras along the way, so you're not going, well, this is, I planned on 4 days, but I've been here 5 days, and you kind of have an extra day built in to your kit, I guess. That's one thing that I do. I don't know if that's the right plan or not. It's just something that I do.
I'm into that for sure, especially like I kind of have deep in the bottom of my pack, I have a couple things that like I carry around, and I know I don't need to, but I do. Like one is an extra headlamp. I got the Peaks Duo, and they got this little feature where you can hold a button down. It flashes twice. It will not turn on.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been standing there at a dead elk with my main headlamp going out, and then I'm like, I'll just got a backup, and that backup was turned on all month. So it's dead, and cutting up an elk in the dark truly the dark is not fun. So I kind of buried in the bottom is that extra Peaks Duo and like maybe a couple protein bars for the hopeful event that maybe I do get one down. I'm kind of out of food, but I'm not really, and I can just sustain that pack out for the evening.
Yeah, it's crazy too. I went on probably the toughest backcountry hunt that I've ever been on. I guess 2 springs ago was actually a bear hunt. And, you know, tough pack out. We ended up having to go out. We did crossover on the way in that was uncrossable on the way out. So we ended up having to take a different route out, which led to an extra 10 miles with all of our gear and a bear split between us. And, dude, it was crushing me, man. And I had, you know, one example here, and I call it pocket food, Dan. I like to keep just at least a supply of food in one of my, I guess, you know, cargo pockets of my hunting pants. And I'd eat one of these things, and I could immediately feel like I'd be like, dude, I'm dragging like this, and then I could feel that like energy surging throughout my body. Like to me, it was like a really good example of how much food is fuel, even when you're tired.
Oh, I'm into what you're saying. I remember I was packing out an Idaho bull last year, and I actually had a good friend who's really big and fast and strong and fit. And so he made the decision that we were going to split the elk in half and do one trip. And I've done it before, but man, like I'm just not that big of a dude. I'm not that sturdy. And
Dan, can I ask a question? Is this this is boned out in half?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. We deboned it. And I had the rack. And it was a 6-point. So it was a good sized bull. It was a mature bull. And we were making our way out, and what I had in my cargo pocket that he didn't know was these little shot blocks from Cliff. They're little gel. They're for like triathletes and stuff, and they got sodium in it, chloride, which we talked about in our last 10-minute talk. So it's got the right salt, it's got some carb, and it's got a little bit of caffeine in it. And I just happened to throw that in my cargo before we went to go get the elk. And dude, that thing saved my butt. I literally felt like I was just diminishing, and we had a ways to go. And I didn't even see my buddy Tyler anymore. He was gone, and I'm just like, oh, one of those. And the second I got that down the hatch, man, it was like resurgence. I was back in the game. And so I'm going to pack those this year for sure. Like I'm going to actually dedicate a whole couple boxes of those and have those handy for those little lulls. I mean, I've never taken them before, so that was my first go. It could be placebo, but it really felt like it made a difference.
Yeah, I try to mitigate at least a little bit in my daily life, sugar and carbs, and I know some folks that do that on the mountain as well. That's not me. I'm a little bit of a sugar and carb guy, right, wrong, or otherwise, you know. And I guess I might defer to you a little bit, Dan, there. But like you said, I've got maybe somewhat similar these honey stinger chews. Like to me, that's like, hey, I need a quick burst of energy. I'm trying to push through something. And you know, these honey stinger waffle bars, lightweight, high calorie count there. I'll probably actually, as we talk through, I'll kind of go through what I got here. But like, what are your thoughts on that as far as, you know, sugar and carbs on the mountain?
I mean, I thought this would probably come up, Mark. You did segue it beautifully. I will say, not to be controversial, but like there is a time and a place for keto, which is where people, remember, they just like eat meat and high fats, 0 carbs. And that does really well. I've actually personally never done it. And I actually am interested in going keto for a month, not for aesthetics, but just for anti-inflammation. I'd really like my knees and elbows to just chill out for a month. And so I was planning on doing that in the summer, but we ended up selling, moving our house, all that stuff. So I just put it off. And so I still haven't done it yet. So I'm a kind of a loser that way, but I promise I'm going to do it for a month. But the reason why I say that is I just think for 99.9% of the people that maybe are doing keto right now, I'm going to be the guy to tell you, I don't think you'll be able to sustain that while hunting. I don't know how you're going to keep meats and cheeses and nuts and hard-boiled eggs and steak for dinner every night. You better plan on hunting out of a truck with a really big cooler. I'm not sure the backcountry is going to be the place to go keto. whereas the front country could definitely be more. So you might have to adapt your style of hunting. But for me, given that, I've tested it, I run on carbs big time while elk hunting. I need those sugars in the bloodstream. I need to be constantly replenishing the glycogen stores in my liver. And so I'm running on carbs. I would not do well on a low carb anything while elk hunting, which is predominantly an oxidative or like energy system, like zone 2 type. It's just a low deal where, man, there's something to be said for carbs. I do really well on them. And there's always exceptions. There's outliers and there's people that can do it. There's even fat adapted long distance runners, but it takes them a while to get there. And then they have their program to do it. So for most people, I guess I'm just going to kind of cut you off at the head and say, hey, it's probably not going to work out great for most people to do some sort of low carb deal in the mountains and be able to hunt your best.
Yeah, some of that just comes down to the availability of foods catered to it, and I'm sure there's stuff out there, and I'm sure somebody can provide actually some really good comments for, if they want to contradict that a little bit. Definitely tell us what you're doing, because I do find at times like protein can be a little bit of a tough thing to get when you're building out your food kit, but it's just when you look at primarily like the pre-packaged type stuff, there's just not, unless you want to eat, cured meat sticks the whole time, which I mean, I have as part of my kit. I haven't seen a ton out. I've seen keto bars and things like that, and I've packed some of those, and some of those aren't in my kit anymore. So, yeah,
I feel that. And I just know a couple buddies that are on keto and have tried to do it in the mountains, and they did all the work. I mean, they made like the oils and the cheeses and all the stuff, and it's just really challenging for them. And so knowing that you're going to utilize these carbs, it's okay to maybe even take a break from it. Because at the end of the day, like, it is really hard to sustain energy levels and hunt your best. And like we talked about in our 10-minute pod, like even decision-making is kind of like, we could boil all hunting down to decisions, good or bad. A lot of your success and failure will hinge upon the decisions you made. And in order to make your best cognitive decisions, you need to have like, your brain it likes sugar. That's what your brain is a thirst trap for sugar, dude. It needs it. And you got to feed the brain so you can make the good decisions. So then that your body can do what your brain says, so you can get in position. So yeah, man, I'm definitely a higher carbohydrate. So for example, outside the mountains, I'm more of a 40-30-30 macronutrient split, meaning about 40% of my calories come from carbs, 30% come from protein, and 30% come from fat. It is not like that. When I'm hunting, it's more of like a 60-20-20, 60% of my calories from carbs, 20 protein, 20 fat. And that seems to work well for me. And that's just through experimenting. And I would say that most people have to do their own experimentation to figure out what's sustainable for them. What do you think you are?
Let me see here. I might even be able to look it up. I printed it off, and full disclosure, Dan, I left my printout on the printer. Somewhere out there on the printer is my printout with some of these breakdowns. But I think it's close to that 60-20-20 for sure. And I get it. I think it's a little bit of the nature of what my body likes. And, you were talking a little bit earlier, some of it's like the easy button too for me, right? Like, I'm sure there's guys like, dude, I can maintain keto. Like you said, I'd put in all the work on the mountain or something like that. I don't know. I'm not going to make the time to do that.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. And I mean, once they get their minds, listeners, once you get your mind wrapped around, okay, this is how many calories I need, I'm going to try to maybe diagnose what macronutrient split works best for me. And then I'm going to run with it and go from there. And then you can start to geek out on the items that you brought. Like, for example, if I'm looking on that desk right now, and sorry, listeners, but YouTube watchers, you'll know what I'm talking about. Mark, will you read the ingredients off of the package closest to the peak refuel?
This guy here?
Yeah.
So this is a That's It bar. I've got 2 of them in here. I find often when I like something and I know I'm going to eat it, I pack 2, Dan. So let's see. Total fat, 0. Saturated fat, 0. Trans fat, 0. Cholesterol, 0. Sodium, 25 milligrams.
How about just ingredients?
Oh, the ingredients. That's what you wanted.
Yep.
Apples and mangoes.
Okay. Now, conversely, grab that chocolate chip vegetarian cookie thing and try to read the ingredients to me on that.
Dan, don't.
On the very back there by the nutrition label, there'll be the ingredients list. And I imagine that one's probably long.
So it's longer, and Dan, don't ruin this for me because I really like these. This is
I'm going to ruin this for you.
This is a Lenny and Larry's. It tastes like a cookie. It looks like a cookie, but at least on the surface, it's better for you than a cookie. And it's got 440 calories, okay? And it's, what's this thing weigh? I'll look up the weight here in a minute. I'm stalling.
I understand.
Enriched wheat flour.
Boo.
Wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, thiamine monotrate, riboflavin, folic acid, sugar, cocoa butter, dextrose, natural vanilla extract, inulin, cane sugar, invert sugar, vegetable glycerine, palm fruit oil, sunflower, lecithin or lecithin, or you get the option of canola lecithin, natural flavor, baking soda, salt, Z something gum, guar gum, allergens, contains wheat.
So, like, obviously, like, I don't know what half that stuff is. And I knew what apple and mango was because, like, that's what the ingredients of the other one. So what I would say is I'm not trying to be like I'm not trying to rain on your parade, but what I would say is, like, if something like that with all those weird ingredients, man-made, processed to death, and you eat that and you're like, I mean, that's fine. It's good. But if you're being honest with yourself and you have a That's It bar and you're like, dang, I feel good. I have sustainable energy. I'm vibing. I would rather see you put 4 That's It's in your bag and maybe swap that thing out for something. I just worried about quality of ingredients. And obviously, man, like, we haven't even brought up Pop-Tarts yet, which are going in my bag this year despite the ingredients. And maybe that's your version of a Pop-Tart, but I'm going to try my best to get the foods that have the least amount of ingredients, that are like things I actually know what they are, and then test them and make sure that I'm feeling pretty good when I eat it. That's kind of the only reason I had you grab that one. So
no, I agree, and this might be a little bit more durable than a Pop-Tart, Dan. Here's what I liked about it, and like most people, whether you're reading a print ad or a news article, you only read the headline. So on the front of the packaging, Dan, don't read the back. You just got to read the front. It says 10 grams of fiber. Okay, that's good, and 16 grams of protein. So I look at those and I go, well, those are positives, and that's why I picked it up. And then I was like, oh, it tastes good too. I'm going to eat these. Mix it in my pack every time.
I mean, it's fair. We're not trying to set the world on fire, but I think we both can agree that no matter what's on your desk there, you're probably not getting all the nutrients you need from these quote unquote foods. So then at some point in this conversation, maybe we'll go down that path of like, okay, well, what supplements should I take in addition to this food? Because ultimately we're looking for sustainable energy, and we're also looking to semi-recover between hunts day to day when we lay our head down to rest and wake up feeling a little bit better than we did the day before, and perform our best. I mean, it's kind of a performance deal on the mountains, like where we just want to be able to be at our best. In a place that's really not home field advantage, so we're guests, we're visitor, we're the visiting team, kind of want to like do the best we can.
Yeah. Well, I feel like, I'm the visiting team playing who is likely going to be the state champions. And, we're hoping to win a game this year.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah, no.
You're probably a little different.
You. No, you're definitely playing their game for sure. And it's when you kind of put it in that context of like, oh, that's right. We're the visiting team. And we don't visit very often compared to them who live here year round and make a living. So it's like, oh yeah, like, okay, so maybe I do need to take some of these little smaller overlooked decisions a little more seriously, because it could make a difference in how you perform and, more importantly, how you recover day over day in a backcountry hunt. So
what the heck is going on, Vortex Nation? Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, if you watch on YouTube. And thank you for commenting. Hold on a sec. Let me check my watch here, see what time it is. That's right. It's time for the comment of the week. Now, this one comes from Gordon Marshall, 4900, and it relates to the podcast we just did with the guys from Barnes Bullets. Ryan and I did that one together with those guys. Fascinating podcast, super interesting, tons of great information. So I'm going to read you what old Gordon has to say here. This really makes me want to reload just to see what I can make a bullet do. All right, Gordon, well, I hope you do that. He follows it with, BTW, that means by the way, I just had to laugh that you guys are giving hoodies away during the summer. Well, congratulations, Gordon, because you are the comment of the week. You've won yourself one of these super sweet Vortex Nation podcast hoodies. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing one right now. Gordon, we're going to reach out to you via the comment section on the YouTube channel. I hope you enjoy your sweatshirt and don't sweat too much. Absolutely, Dan. And you mentioned the Pop-Tarts going in your food kit. So what, off the top of your head, I know you don't have it laid out like I have on the table here, like what are some things that you like to take with you in your food kit every day? Like what are some go-tos that make it every time? And it can be stuff that you're proud of that's in your kit, or the guilty pleasures like the Pop-Tarts.
Yeah, so Pop-Tart, definitely guilty pleasure. Going to be one of those instances where like we're running and gunning. I need something quick, energy. I already mentioned kind of like, your little honey stinger chewies, and I have those Cliff shot blocks. Those are something that I'm going to put in every day. One thing I do is when I go to like Costco every year, and I'm not ashamed of this. I'm pretty proud of this. In fact, I have never found a trail mix that I thought was like, I always feel like there's way too many raisins. There's not enough M&Ms. And so I have personally mitigated that to where I now construct my own trail mix. So I typically go to like a Costco or some sort of warehouse bulk, and I'll buy all the ingredients and make my own. So it'd be like, I love cashews. I love natural almonds. I don't need them to be flavored. I like to get my own little twist of fruit, mango, what have you. And then peanut M&Ms, they're kind of bigger, they're bulky, they don't get melted as easily. And so I'll make my own trail mix, and it will be like 60% peanut M&Ms, minimum 50%. And so like when you pick up that bag, you see mostly M&Ms with some cashews and some almonds and things like that. So I've just done, that's like the one thing that I never get tired of. Costco makes this thing called cashew clusters. You ever had them?
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times I'll just do trail mix with cashew clusters and peanut M&Ms, kind of a 1-to-1 ratio, super high calorie, very like calorie to ounce, like money right in the ratio, exceeds that 1-to-1 for sure. And I always look forward to having that. So that's kind of like a good snack on the run. And I didn't do this last year, Mark, but I did this years in the past where like I vacuum sealed probably 20, like bagel, peanut butter, honey, cooked bacon, 2 big strips, and then just vacuum sealed it down. And dude, honestly, I remember every day almost like a little impatient, like, hey, is it time to eat that yet? Like, I'm looking forward to that son of a gun. Like, that is the secret sauce to being a happy hunting party in the backcountry, having that little magical, I can't wait to tap into that peanut butter and honey bacon sandwich. So I'll probably do that again this year. I got a little vacuum sealer from butchering animals and stuff. So I just vacuum seal up one a day, cut out the extra packaging so it's nice and tight, and stick that in my daily food bag. It's got so much energy. I never wear out. The things that I will not put in is what you said earlier. And I thought, man, I hope people didn't skip over that. Mark said, nothing's worse than something chalky that requires all that commodity of water to wash down. And water's already a scarcity and a valuable thing that you don't. So I refuse to eat like that. That's it, bar. For me, I hardly need any water with that. Whereas like that protein cookie, that could be a little chalky. Or is that a Pro Bar?
Yeah.
That you got on there? I love Pro Bars, but sometimes they require a lot of water. The worst for me was like this green belly bar. It had like 800 calories, but I needed 1 gallon of water to wash it down. And it's like, that's not going to work.
You're staying hydrated though. So
yeah.
I mean, maybe. I like the Pro Bars. They taste pretty good. I can't eat them. I can eat them without a ton of water, but I got to take my time. You know, some of this other stuff you can take down a little bit. And again, going back to the sugar, I'm not saying, you know, like I try to avoid sugar in my daily life, but it also helps you salivate a little bit, in my opinion. And then you can just kind of like, you know, get the food down and go. I'll give you, so this, I'm going to go through some of the stuff here and comment if you agree, disagree. That's it, bars. Like you said, you know, very simple ingredients there. It's almost like a fruit roll up. I'm always going with a couple of those. We talked about the Honey Stinger Chews, the Honey Stinger waffles. Dan, I wish you hadn't have made me read the ingredients on this one. I still don't think it's that bad. That Lenny and Larry's, the complete cookie. Again, it's got that good amount of protein in it. These Lara bars.
Yeah.
So I'll pack one of those. They've got several different flavors, so I generally pick a different flavor for every day. And a lot of these, like,
which one is that?
This is the blueberry muffin.
Yeah, that one's good. Like the cashew one, it's a little on the chalky side.
Mm-hmm.
They have an apple one. Doesn't seem to require a lot of water to get that down.
Yep.
But these are anything usually with peanut butter, chocolate peanut butter in a protein bar is typically going to need a little more water to get it go down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that one. I think they make one that's kind of like almost like a banana bread type thing. I pack a couple of these Epic bars. This is the uncured bacon pork. This thing's like 170 calories.
Those are so money. I love those.
1.5 ounces. Mixing it up. I've got, just the same again, Epic bar. This is the beef one. One of these Vermont. This is the uncured turkey pepperoni, but I generally I'll get a beef one, a pepperoni, whatever. Got the Pro Bar. 2 liquid IVs. I got some of these. I'll do some sort of salt supplement. I think these are like 45 calories each. And then every night for dinner, which I look forward to these, a peak refuel dinner. They vary in calories. Some are over 1,000. This is the homestyle chicken and rice at 740 calories. For the total, I don't know. They put like the amount per serving is 370, but for me, the serving is the whole 740. And then a couple honorable mentions that, like, I'll probably bring, and this isn't like in my daily. I might bring like 2 of these for a 5-day hunt, maybe 1 of these for a 5-day hunt. The Peak Refuel Brownie Bites. I like those.
I've never had those. Are they pretty good?
I dig them. Yeah, I like them. And then I didn't, oftentimes I'll bring like a little bag of pistachios. These guys are 159 calories per ounce. And I like to eat them.
M&Ms? I don't see any M&Ms.
They're not, I didn't, it's just I eat a lot of pistachios. I'm a pistachio guy. Almonds can be really good. Like you said, cashews are really good. Probably nuts in general. And then, like you mentioned, the dried mangoes, dates. I like dates, but they got. I was talking to Ryan Muckenhern before the podcast, and he's like, oh, what do you know? I'm like, I'm about to podcast, and I was picking his brain a little bit, and he brings dates. But man, I brought dates before, and they got kind of like pretty ooey gooey, and then my hands got, you know what I mean?
That's nasty.
So, one thing he mentioned though that he brings is an Ensure Plus, like kind of the like a protein, vitamin, supplement type thing. 350 calories, so like a decent amount of calories. But and actually they're delicious. I've had them before and I like them. And I think good. It's a quick way. You know, you can take that down pretty quick and get a quick 350. And weight penalty there though, because at least the 8-ounce version actually weighs 8 fluid ounces is 8.32 ounces though. So
yeah, no man, like I keep the I might do show and tell since I'm literally looking at a tote right now that it's labeled Backcountry Food. I'm going to grab that real quick. But one thing I do in my cooler back of my truck, because I may dip into the backcountry on an elk hunt and dip back out and move locations. You know, I've been known to be pretty mobile. So like, I don't usually go marry one spot and be like, oh, I'm going to hunt here for the whole season. Like I may be in the backcountry for a night or 3 nights. And one of my systems that isn't, this would probably be appropriate, is like I have a Kufaro spike camp bag in my truck, completely separate from my day hunting pack. And in there is my shelter, pad, bag, an extra jet boil or an extra water filtration system, and then probably 4 1-gallon Ziploc bags. So 4 days of food. And I've been known to like throw that entire thing in my backpack and go into an area where I think there's going to be elk, and I potentially am going to drop a spike camp because I don't want to do a 3 to 5 mile buy in, buy out every day.
Right.
Because the other commodity besides water is, like you said, energy. And so sometimes I throw that in, I get in there, and what you know, I bump the elk and they go to a different zip code. And so then I'm like, okay, I'm headed back to the truck. I'm going to move locations for tomorrow. In my truck, I go to Costco and I buy the Premier Protein ready to drink. There's 30 grams of protein, because to me, protein is the most difficult thing to get on the mountain, period. And so anytime I'm back at my trunk or if I'm sleeping at my truck, it is RTD for breakfast, RTD as an appetizer before my freeze-dried meal, just trying to get the protein in to protect the lean body mass. I'm going to grab this tote. I probably won't leave the frame.
The irony there, though, Dan, is here we are in the mountains chasing around these absolute windfalls of pure protein, and yet the thing that's hard to get, well, and chase, I guess it's always, it is. It's hard to get that darn protein.
We need another stomach so we can eat grass and digest it and get protein out of it. But, so I saw your peak and I was like, okay, I mainly have peak in this tote. And the 2 new ones I bought this year is the Meat Eater edition, Buffalo. I'm like, you had me at Buffalo. Another good company is Wild Society. They're also out of Montana and they source a lot of stuff, which is good. I have this new company that I'm going to be trying. Here it is. Have you had ReadyWise outdoor meals?
I haven't, no.
I tested these this spring, a beef stroganoff. I know you're not a huge fan of. They're a little light on calories. They're like around the 500 or 600 calorie mark. I'd like to be closer to 1,000 at night, honestly. It's what I need. I mean, I'm trying to
slug up. Like that's my replenish, get your sleep, get your calories, and I'm trying to go to bed as full as I can.
These are really good. Gastronome. Let's see if I can find one. I have those. They're out of they're out of Montana, and they make all their food in-house. And so like if you're looking to be like really ingredient conscientious and not wanting to buy something maybe more corporate-y like Peak, or I don't want to put Peak in the same realm as Mountain House. I'd say Peak's one of my absolute favorites, but Gastronome's like super micro-sourced, all in-house right there, cooked by one gal. And they sell out every year. So like you got to get on it. I think you can order online, about $15 a meal, but when it comes to peak, I always end up getting these and I never eat them. Do you ever eat these ones?
So I like them. I have them, and I almost even brought one. I'm thinking, excuse me. I've got a hunt coming up this late August, and I think I'll probably pack a couple of those. I think, Dan, what you're holding up there, that's like the granola breakfast one. If we can't,
Mountain berry.
If we camp in this one spot, we have pretty, like, it's a little bit of a drop to get to this lake to get water, but it's not the worst in the world, so I'm not worried about burning a little extra water to make a breakfast. I usually don't eat breakfast, though. It's usually about like a 8 a.m., pop my first bar, and then kind of snack throughout the day, and then have that big dinner is what I generally do. There you go.
Recognize that guy? American Buffalo goulash. And then there's a macaroni one. And my job is to test that here before hunting season because I bought as many as I could. And I hope I like it. Like you, I haven't had one I don't like. I've never tried that berry one before, and I don't know, is that a breakfast? Because I don't really eat breakfast. Do you eat it for dinner?
It's like it's more of a breakfast. It's got, I think, and I don't have one in front. I guess you have one in front of you, but it's kind of got like freeze dried, milk in there and the berries and the granola. So I think it's a pretty solid breakfast. You can eat it cold, so you don't have to get your stove out. I'm definitely curious about it. It's got a fair amount of calories in it, so you would definitely. It would be a pretty lightweight, likely tasty add to add a bunch of calories to your food bag.
Have you had this one, the breakfast skillet from Peaks?
The breakfast skillet is money, and like I said,
is that like a dinner?
I think you could do whatever. You could have a little breakfast for dinner with it. Yeah.
Because I'm not going to make this for in the morning. Like the elk are bugling, we need to get to where we need to get. But I could see this for dinner. I've never had it, so I didn't know.
It's good.
What you thought.
Like if you kind of like, that typical diner skillet with potatoes and peppers and eggs, and that's something you're like, oh, that sounds good for dinner. I would throw it in. It's super good. Yeah, I've really enjoyed, like you said, pretty much all their meals. I try to pack a different one for every night, and then whatever my favorite one is, then I'll double up on that one.
How about Backcountry Nutrition Talk? And bringing up this little guy that gets overlooked. A spoon. This one's from Peaks, where you can actually reach into your freeze-dried meal. Have you ever tried to eat?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, long-handled titanium spoon is clutch. And sometimes, Dan, I do this because it isn't, even though I'm trying to cut weight in a big way this year because I haven't done it on my body, so I'm trying to do it in my pack. Sometimes I pack an extra spoon because, well, number one, sometimes it's nice to have an extra clean spoon. And I swear, more often than not, somebody you're with forgets their spoon. And then you just get to, it's such a shining, like, what a treat to be able to offer somebody a clean spoon and say, I have this for you.
That has happened many a time. Here is your gastronome. You are welcome. That is going to be one of your best tasting. It's 850 calories, Italian sausage, rigatoni. Man, my camera guy turned me on to gastronome, and I'm like, dang, these are good. And variety is important, right? Like, don't order the same one every day unless you're a robot. You're
going to burn out. I mean, even like, I'm pretty burnt out on the stuff that I have here in front of me, but you can mix it up a little bit with, generally each one of these options has multiple options within the category. So, I mean, at the end of the day, they're not so different that you're like, oh, this is a completely different meal outside of your dinner meal, but it does mix it up a little bit. I'm gonna tell you, Dan, so I've got the numbers on what I have in front of me here. 3310 in cows, and it's coming in sans these guys and the nuts at 2 pounds, 0.6 ounces. So I'm rolling at about right at 2 pounds of food per day. And that's
okay. Do you know your total grams of the macros, the protein, carb, fat?
So I think so. Fat, 126. 126 grams. Saturated fat, 53.5. Sodium, 4505. I'm going to give you all the numbers I have in front of me. You tell me which ones are important. Potassium, 3206. I don't know why. This seems like it should be more. Carbohydrates, 434. That doesn't seem right.
Okay. Nope, that sounds right.
Fiber, 39. Sugar, 233.5.
Not terrible.
Protein, 103.
That seems light to me, but okay.
It seems light, but looking at what I have in front of me, it's probably light. You know what I mean? Like, it's probably accurate.
Yeah. So let's see, 3310. Aha. Are you certain on the total fat is 126?
126. So it's on this little chart that I have out here. It says fat 126 and then saturated fat 53.5. It breaks them out separately. That
it might still pull from 126. 126 might be your net fat though. Which is, let me just see if my math is right. 34 plus 52. Yeah, that's right. So based on the information you just gave me in my iPhone calculator, it looks like about 52% of your calories is coming from carbs, which you said 60. 34% of your calories are coming from fat, and only about 14% of your calories is coming from protein. So I would encourage you to probably pack the Ensure or not into the mountains, but have like the RTD or something if you are glamping or you come back to your truck. Otherwise, an easy fix for that would be just to add a little bit more jerky into your food that you look forward to, like a package of Links, whatever, something to where you could bolster your protein up a little bit. You're a little light.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad we did that, because that was a question I had, was like, I'm sure there's some gaps here, right? I'm not a professional, I'm not a dietitian or anything like that, so that's good to know. And I'm not like just kind of like having everything out in front of me and looking at it. I'm not surprised by that either, right?
Yeah, and then I guess the last part would be, okay, once you kind of figure out your caloric need, your activity level, your body weight, you do your online calculations, you kind of guesstimate on your macronutrient profile. Then you kind of have to have real talk and be like, okay, so what nutrients do I need to backfill? And to me, I'm thinking, for me, I do like a daily multivitamin, just a pop a daily multi. The branched chain amino acids, BCAAs, which is a byproduct of protein. I kind of like to drink some BCAAs in my water. So like Wilderness Athlete Hydrate and Recover has those in them, which is good. It kind of checks the box, gets you electrolytes, gets you a little bit of sodium. That's cool. For me, I take a little bit of joint support, like glucosamine sulfate chondroitin, but that's probably not applicable to you young guys out there, to you older guys, like Mark, way older than me, just so everyone knows. Joint support wouldn't be a bad idea. And I actually do fish oil, and I do that every day. Wilderness Athlete makes this thing called the good stuff. So all that stuff minus the joint support is in one little package. So it's like one big bag has 30 servings. So you pull out one little package, it's all in there. I'm not taking pill bottles in the backcountry. So that I could just put one a day in each food bag, which I do. And it kind of just additional insurance policy to get all the nutrients that we're definitely not getting from food.
That's a good idea, and I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that's something that I haven't been doing. And that's not a huge weight penalty by any means, right? Like, that's not a big ad, but probably a big ad for your body.
Yeah, definitely. So it just wouldn't hurt. We're not promoting one company over the other. We're just saying, hey, try to backfill some of that with a little bit of supplementation.
Cool. I like it, Dan. What about, like you said, maybe we'll provide some tools in the show notes, some calculators, things like that, how a person can, analyze the food that they're looking at. I didn't have this app. Catherine in the office had this app. it was just I think it was like MyFitnessPal or something like that. So earlier in the day, she just scanned all the stuff, and that's what kind of gave me these breakdowns, which then I relayed to you, and you told me what they mean.
Yep. And that app's been around forever. It's super free and awesome. It still might be owned by Under Armour. It's like a great little food journal you could use off the mountains as well. Maybe just getting a quick measurements of where you're at heading into the season, so you can get an accurate count on your body fat. Like a lot of local personal trainers can do like a caliper skin fold body fat test, kind of accurate-ish, or you could go get a DEXA scan, an in-body scan. I used to have one of those machines when I owned a gym. Like people hop on there, get a pretty darn good electroimpedance reading, and then they know where they're at. And those in-bodies give you an accurate basal metabolic rate. So it's kind of like, I don't need a calculator. This machine tells me that I need 1,800 calories to sustain where I'm at. And then I just reverse engineer the rest. But you don't have to do all this stuff. But what I'm into, and I guess maybe the theme of what I'm trying to say is like, I am a huge fan of controlling the controllables. And it seems like when you're hunting, there's just so much out of your control, i.e. really bad weather, an excessive amount of hunting pressure, animals that don't want to die, all these things I can't control. And then, so I can control all this food stuff to make sure I'm feeling and performing well. So why wouldn't you? Because hunting season is so finite. It just kind of comes and goes, and you're left with way too much time daydreaming about the next go. So take advantage of this stuff. It does matter.
I love it. I love it, Dan. No, man, I appreciate it. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I find this stuff interesting. I'm still dialing, and like you said, trying to pick the brain of other guys like you, like, oh, what do you like? What are you eating? What's working for you? So yeah, I mean, I'd encourage anybody to, analyze what they have going on, talk to your buddies. And then, man, this is one of those things where I think a lot of people have questions about it. So the audience out there, man, if you've got, good stuff that you've been doing, techniques you've been using, things you like that you want to eat on the mountain that fall into maybe that good category, or hell, let us know your guilty pleasures too. Maybe we're all looking for another Snickers or Pop-Tart to keep in the old pack. So, but Dan, thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. Happy hunting and shooting. And eat good on the mountain. We'll catch you on the next one.
There you have it, folks. Thank you very much for listening. As usual, give this video a like if you liked it, comment something below, and give us a subscribe to the Vortex Nation podcast channel. It would mean a lot to us. Also, why don't you give us a follow over on Instagram while you're at it, @Vortex Nation Podcast. We'd love to hear from you over there, and we'll keep you updated with all kinds of cool photos and videos from our adventures that we do here. Otherwise, we will see you on the next one. Thank you again. Happy hunting and shooting, everybody. Have a good one.